finally a main character named Andy. The Old Guard. So The Old Guard is a new movie on Netflix. See what I did there? It's based off a comic book I've never read. It came out last week and it's still like way popular. Isn't it like the most watched movie on Netflix now or some shit? Anyway, we have Charlize Theron. She plays Andy. She's the leader of a group of immortal warriors. They've been around for centuries and centuries. Now we're in present day. Some British company wants to harvest their DNA to cure diseases. And also we have a newcomer to the group. She's just figuring out that she's one of these immortal people. So she has to be introduced to this world. And now we have our pretty sweet rated R action movie. I mean, cause let's face it, when Charlize Theron is the star in an action movie, you're gonna get some pretty good action. I loved the action in Atomic Blonde. Not so much the plot, but the action was really badass. And this time, Charlize Theron doesn't have to fake some British accent. Now, this time we get a Charlize Theron that is just thoroughly a badass. Although, honestly speaking, she was almost unrecognizable without blonde hair. But she looks totally awesome in that tank top. She looks like Sarah Connor. And she's the oldest of this group of immortals, so she bears the most pain on her shoulders, because she's been around for God knows how long. And you can see it in her eyes. She's like, yeah, and now she's at the point where she's like, fuck it, let's just kill some folks. And she does. She lays some folks out. That axe she carries is awesome. I just think it's a really cool design for a weapon. It reminded me of Stormbreaker. And also, props to this new chick. I haven't seen her in anything before, I don't think. But you know, her character is the one who is the new immortal. She doesn't know how to handle all this yet. So she is our eyes and ears into this world. We're going on this learning journey with her. And the movie does that really well. Because she's like, well, I had a life. She had life goals and dreams. She was a Marine. But now Charlize Theron's like, nope, you gotta stick with us now. And this is gonna be your life forever. That's gonna take some getting used to. But you do get it, you know? This girl just found out she's going to live forever, meaning she's gonna outlive everyone she cares about. That's gonna be a lot to take in. As for the villains in this movie, well, first of all, Chiwetel Ejiofor, he's always been good at playing a villain. Because he's just that calm, collected dude that's like, no, I believe what I'm doing is right. His arc is actually really cool in this movie. And I really hope he shows up in Doctor Strange 2. Just saying. But the main bad guy in this movie is played by Harry Melling, aka Dudley Dursley from Harry Potter. And he's in great shape now. Good for him. And once again, he plays a really good douchebag, because he's the one who owns the company that wants to harvest these immortals' DNA. But of course, he wants to do it for the wrong reasons. He wants to do it for the money. Because if his company can cure certain diseases, well, people will pay a pretty penny for that. Or quid, or something. I don't know how British money works. Now, as for the movie itself, I will admit it did take some time to get going for me, because the movie starts out really without an explanation. It just kind of plops you into the middle of the scenario. And you're like, oh, okay, well, I guess we're here now. There's no intro, there's no prologue. It's just kind of, here you go. And it does a thing where it starts off with an action scene and it gives you explanation as to who these immortal warriors are throughout the movie. I personally would have preferred the more old school approach with a prologue, but that's just me. That's just how I felt. But then once it got to the first badass action scene, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Rated R action scenes can be really awesome and brutal. Oh my God, there's some brutality in this movie. Like there's a scene, vaguely speaking, someone's really just bent out of shape. It's one of the immortal people and their fingers are all like bent in different ways. It was gross. And you see it coming back together and you hear the bones cracking. I was like, oh. Whenever that happens in movies or TV or whatever, that always grosses me out. Like in the show Siren, whenever a mermaid goes into the water and I hear her leg bones cracking into a tail, I'm just like, oh my God. I mean, props to this movie for going there. It is rated R for sure, and it's pretty cool. The action scenes in this movie are just all sorts of badass. But then the movie got to a slower scene, and I would expect the slower scenes in a movie like this to bore me to tears, because the characters are just sitting around and talking about their pasts. But surprisingly, they actually really got to me, because the slower scenes are character development scenes, they're emotional scenes. These immortal warriors are sitting in a circle, they're just talking about their past, they're explaining their past to this new girl, explaining how certain things have to work now, and how huge of a burden that is to them. You can't help but feel sorry for these guys. You're like, oh shit, that sucks. It sucks to be you. Really makes you think, would you want to be immortal? I don't know if I would or not, I'm being honest. And it shows that just because you live forever doesn't mean pain doesn't hurt. This movie shows that they can get shot up and it really hurts like a motherfucker. And you feel it too. It's really good filmmaking. And huge hats off to the representation in this movie. I mean, I know that there's representation everywhere in movies these days, but two of the immortal warriors in this film, they're a gay couple. And one of the best scenes in this movie is this guy explaining to a group of soldiers what this other man means to him. And for some reason, I just loved the speech that he gave. Because sometimes representation in movies can be a little preachy, you know? Or like it's a preachy message in a movie for no reason other than to just be there. But in this movie, it felt like it had a point and purpose. I know it kind of feels like I'm spoiling a scene in the movie, but the scene is on YouTube right now. They released it as a clip. In fact, that's the thumbnail for it. I'll watch it again and again because it's such a great scene. However, one thing I did not dig in the movie The soundtrack. Sometimes the soundtrack in the movie was really cool. There would be this electro-pop beat playing during an action scene. It gives the movie a certain vibe and I was into it. But other times, usually during a dramatic scene, they would actually play like an indie pop song and it made it feel like a TV episode of like a CW show or something. It really did, like honest to God. I'm not the only one who felt that way, right? And it happened a few times in this movie. Like there would be a dramatic scene, something big's about to go down or something, and then I would hear someone singing in the background and I would go from, oh sweet, I'm watching a kick-ass action movie to, oh, now I'm watching an episode of Cloak and Dagger. Music like that works for Cloak and Dagger because it's a TV show, but not so much for a movie. At least not in my opinion. But all in all, in the end, I really enjoyed The Old Guard. We got a badass main character with a badass name, played by one badass Charlize Theron. We got a great dynamic among this group of immortal warriors. Worked for me a lot better than Highlander did, which, am I the only one who watched Highlander and thought it kinda sucked? It's weird. I don't know, I watched it for the first time a few months ago. Just speaking my mind here, man. But the action scenes in The Old Guard were badass and violent and brutal. The dialogue was very well written, as was the whole script, really. It did take some time before I really got into it, and the soundtrack was eh. But the movie did leave it open for a sequel that I would love to see. Cause the last scene in this movie ended, I was like, oh shit! And that was badass. One of the coolest action movies I've seen this year. Again, I know that's not saying much, but check it out, it's on Netflix. And it gained its popularity for a reason. So The Old Guard, have you watched it yet? What do you think about it? And what is your favorite character that Charlize Theron has played? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe.